Welcome to the Healthy Love and Money podcast. If you find money to be the number 1, 2, or even third largest source of stress in your relationship, then you're in the right place. Going beyond how to budget, invest, and do your taxes, we're going to explore financial intimacy. Discover how to talk with your partner about your shared financial life. Let's take the awkward and painful out of money conversations. Join me and hit follow to listen to weekly inspiring, healing, and motivating interviews with financial therapists, couples therapists, and financial planners, and so many more. Let's go on the journey of financial intimacy together. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Healthy Love and Money podcast. Today, it's my distinct honor to welcome Rachel Lawrence to the show. Now, Rachel is an incredible thought leader in the field of financial planning. She's been on an incredible journey in figuring out her own relationship with money, but also helping others along the way. And today, she has a powerful story to share about how couples can collaborate around their cash flow and bring some of that shame out of the process that it shows up. It's very unique in that she works at the highest level for a phenomenal cash flow management software company called Monarch Money. I'm a huge fan of Monarch Money. I'm using it with my clients. I use it in my own life. So this is a shameless plug for Monarch Money. Great stuff there. She also has her own wealth management firm called Reverie Wealth. And if you don't know what Reverie means, it's like daydreaming. And she's going to tell us all about that. So with that long welcome, Rachel, welcome to the show. Can we start actually on the Reverie Wealth side? You said, Ed, it's like daydreaming. And I'm trying to build my word vocabulary every day. So Reverie is my new word of the day. Why did you name your practice Reverie Wealth?
Okay, so I speak French fluently, lived there for a little while, still lead some trips back for a women's travel company. So I wanted to pull in this like French identity almost, this like alternative identity that I feel like I've taken on. And I was looking for a word that really encapsulated the process that I take my clients through. A big part of it is like envisioning your future, really vividly dreaming, daydreaming about what it is that you want to accomplish as vividly as possible so that it becomes almost real in your brain. So there's a little bit of brain science behind that. And reverie is the French word for a vivid daydream. So
wow. I love all of that. And honestly, this is how my brain works is I heard what you're talking about. I'm looking at your bookshelf while you're talking and I see the book, The Body of Money. And so my brain goes down this distracted rabbit hole and I can't remember. What is the author? Gail Coleman, thank you. I knew it was there because Gail has been a great guest of the show in the past. She's incredible.
Oh, she's amazing.
And then my brain came back to the fact that you said France. And then I thought about, I went to France for 2024 Olympics and Paris. And so listeners, this is inside the brain of your podcast host. But what I was also picking up is this imaginative daydreaming state. It's a connection for you personally to France. It's a part of your identity. And I think that's also, I think what's so beautiful in our work, Rachel, is we get to hear about our clients' different parts of their identity and different experiences to try to figure out how do we bring honor to all these different parts of our identity. And so speaking of which, you have these different professional identities. You have your own wealth management business and you're working for Monarch Money. So can you let people know about Monarch Money?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And actually, so I'm only part-time on Reverie Wealth. I run that as right now, like my passion project. I did start it with the intention to be full-time, but then I don't know, I realized that there's always been this part of me that wants to make a bigger impact than I know I can do one-on-one. That's why I started to work for fintechs in the past. Why I went to work for them 15 plus years ago is because I really wanted to have a much bigger impact than I knew I could have just in working in a private practice. I wanted to impact
say that again
of people.
What's the number?
I really want to impact millions of people in their personal finances. That's like my reason for existence, I think, in this world is to do this. I'm embodying Gail right now. I feel this full body like shiver come over me as I say that because I just know it's so true. And I like get goosebumps thinking about
I have all the feels.
Hopefully you're
right
getting them
too. Because I share this. I don't say it often because I'm actually, sometimes I feel embarrassed to say it, but yes, I want to impact millions. This is part of why I have the podcast is because
Exactly.
listeners,
Yes.
you can help Rachel and I right now. Share this podcast episode on your social platforms and let people know that
Yeah.
there's these two wonderful people talking about money. We're going to talk about couples. We're going to talk about cash flow planning, and we're going to talk about how to make it safe and
Yeah.
loving and how we're going to take the conflict and shame out of it. So go ahead and share this episode now
Yeah.
so we can reach our goals of reaching millions. Thank you for the help. Okay, back to you, Rachel.
No, so Monarch is such a good pathway for this because their goal is to impact hundreds of millions
Yeah,
of
yeah,
regular people with their
yeah,
day-to-day money. We want to be like the platform that you go to manage your personal finances. In particular, right now, there's a strong focus
yeah,
on millennial couples. So that's a really nice fit. And again, why you and I are probably talking. But eventually, I think we really just want to be like the platform you go to manage your personal finances, but in particular, your budget. So budgeting is an area that most CFPs, certified financial planner pros, don't get super into. Typically,
yeah,
I mean, the work I did coming into the industry very traditionally was
yeah,
investment management. That's how you get into it. That's one of the reasons people do this. And retirement planning, education planning, a lot of these big ones where there's a
hmm,
ton of complexity. You really do need a professional to help you navigate all the multiple
right,
choices that you have. Budgeting tends to not be as much, I think, on the plate for especially certified
yeah,
financial planner professionals because it seems like a lot of the clients we work with tend not to have as
yeah,
many cash flow issues. Maybe they are earning enough that if they're
yeah,
spending a lot, it doesn't matter. They still have extra to be able to reach their goals. But I struggled with it. This was the area that my parents struggled the most with, that I have struggled a lot with in my career. So I'm really passionate about finding ways in day-to-day life to make personal finance easier, and that means budgeting. That
yeah,
really is what it comes back to. I have been using Monarch since I'm almost the time that it came out
yeah,
in 2021. I switched over from Mint even before Mint shut down because I was so impressed with the business model. They never sell your data. There is a fee to use the platform, but they never sell your data. And that was the thing I was looking for as opposed to something like a Mint. And then I just got hooked on the product itself. It's really good and it does all the things I really needed it to do for my own budget and allowed me to collaborate with my now husband on all of our finances as well. So I'm the head of advice and planning at Monarch. I'm helping them build out features and functions that will help folks manage their finances better in real life. And that includes implementing new strategies that maybe traditional budgeting hasn't worked for you. We're just working on the beta test of this new budgeting system that's going to be an option for folks called flex budgeting or the flex budget method. And it's super exciting to me to be able to push that out to our hundreds of thousands of users. So that's a little bit about my
wow.
work at
So
Monarch
I
right now.
think that there's a lot here, listeners. If you're a couple, stay tuned in. I mean, if you're an individual, stay tuned in too, because Monarch is not a platform for
For
couples
sure. Yeah.
specifically, but they have features designed in mind to help you
Mhm.
collaborate with your partner more easily than like your friendly spreadsheet
That's
that's
right.
not so friendly. It's friendly for you.
At least to one of the partners, it's
Yes,
not so
yes,
friendly.
yes. Your partner probably does not love your spreadsheet. You may love your spreadsheet, and you might have a hard time thinking about not using your spreadsheet and going over to a platform like Monarch. But when you get into Monarch, you'll see that you can do everything your spreadsheet does and probably more. You'll save yourself a lot of time in coding
Mhm.
and a lot of time in like errors.
Mhm.
So, Rachel,
Mhm.
one of the features that I love the most in Monarch is the ability to tag your partner on a transaction. Because here's
Mhm.
what I hear from
Same.
a lot of my
Yep.
couples is one person sitting there at the computer going through and there's, hey, what's this charge at Amazon? And there literally is sometimes this
Yes.
harsh tone in the voice. And maybe they don't mean it to be harsh, but they're
Yes.
like in there and they've got their emotions all stirred up. Or sometimes they're just saying it neutral. Hey, what's this Walmart charge? But their partner's busy doing the laundry or tackling the kid or whatever. And they hear it as a judgment because they have their own anxieties.
Yeah.
Maybe you might even say it with a lot of love.
Yeah.
Hey, honey, what's this charge at Walmart? And if they have any kind of money shame
Yep.
or money anxiety, they may still become reactive, right? So like
100%
this is
agree.
from you are being
Yes.
rude and it's understandable why they're rude. This is you're being neutral and you can't understand why they're reacting, or you're even being nice. And so what Monarch allows you to
Mhm,
do though is just tag the transaction for your partner's review.
mhm.
You can type in a little note. I would
That's
encourage you to
right.
put it in a loving way, not in a critical, judgmental way, because John Gottman, Rachel, who we've talked about in the past, he has the four
Oh,
horsemen of
yeah.
the
Love the
apocalypse.
Gottmans.
Criticism and
That's
contempt
right.
are two of them. So if you got any of
Mhm.
that in your money language, you need to watch it because that will draw you apart. It's super easy to communicate with your partner. And when you're done going through, if you're that primary person that reviews the spending, then you can just say, hey, honey, I've gone through, I've tagged the transactions I'd like for you to look at. Can you go in there and look at those?
Yeah. Yeah, this is exactly how I use it in my personal life and how I encourage folks to use it too. It really does help remove
Yeah.
some of the judgment for one party and shame for the other party because I literally do this once a week or so. I'll log in. I love the Monarch app on my phone. There's a swipe to review little
Yeah.
feature. I can just swipe, put it in, tag my partner is Mark. I tag Mark in something, swipe it, keep going, find another one that I'm like, I don't know what
Yeah.
this is. You want to tell me? I'm
Right.
trying to my best here, but no judgment. I'm not judging you
Yeah.
for how you're spending. It just, you can tell me what it is. And then I'll be like, hey, Mark, I tagged everything. Do you
Yeah.
want to go in and take a quick peek? And that makes it life so much easier. We're both super busy. I do this for a
Yeah.
living, so it's easy for me. Also, I'm always testing
Right.
Monarch. And
Yeah.
so I don't mind at all. And then he just gets to log in and take literally like 30 seconds or less. And then when he finishes, there's a little like confetti screen and it just feels really good. You get this
Ah,
celebratory moment. So that's one of the best ways too that I have found. It really there it's understated how much shame that takes away from the process in
so
collaboration with a
that's
partner.
so that's huge. And then the other thing I want to share a huge win from my practice for you to know for Monarch too is because here's the other thing that I find in couple communication about money is that one person it sounds like you're the like, kind of daily money manager for your family. Like you keep track of where are the bills and how much money do we
Mhm.
have and how is it being spent. And that's typical. Like one partner usually kind of takes that responsibility on. And that means the
Yeah,
other person's less aware of kind of what's going on. They may go do the grocery shopping, but they
that's
don't know
right.
the total impact on everything else or wherever they're
That's
spending the
right.
money. But then when you go to have the goal future oriented conversations about, hey, we're going to go on the family vacation or we're going to save for this bathroom remodel 2 years down the road, it can take a long time for that partner that's not as aware to be, is that okay? Is that not okay? Because they don't really understand what's going on.
Yes.
And so one of the couples I
That's
had got settled in with Monarch and they're using it. They're making a habit of looking at it. They said, we save so much time now in talking about our future plans and we have the energy to
Mhm.
get into it because we're not spending so much time trying to bring the other
Yep.
person up to speed. Now, they may not have perfect
That's right.
information, but closing that
Yep.
gap. And so just by having a process
Yes.
where you're reviewing Monarch, and it sounds like, what do you think the average amount of time per month someone's using Monarch to keep themselves informed?
I mean, we have a really wide range. We do. I think it actually depends on how tight you are with your
Sure.
income versus expenses, how much time you spend there. People who are super tight probably spend much more time. They're
Yeah.
maybe looking every day because they need to manage down to the cent. People who have more room between income and expenses, maybe they are
Yeah.
checking it once a week, once a month. I can tell you personally, I'm probably spending, and
Yeah.
maybe I spend more time
Yeah.
because I'm testing it all the time. I'm probably spending
Okay.
max an hour a week on this, but I'm also like looking pretty deeply at things and also testing out the features. I think like most average clients who are at least earning more than they spend and it's not terribly tight
Right.
but might be a little bit tight, probably 30
Okay.
to 60 minutes a week is
Yeah.
pretty
And so
sufficient.
this is not a huge lift in the grand scheme of things. Like
5 to 10 minutes a
yeah,
day
so if you wanna do
max.
it daily, you can do it in 5 minutes or less once you get it up and going and understand it. If you wanna do it once a week,
Yeah,
maybe 30 minutes. And so I know most of the listeners
exactly.
are very busy professionals, raising kids, doing all the things.
Mhm. Maybe they have 3 jobs and 2 kids plus 2 stepkids. Not
I'm not calling
saying that
myself out, but I
that's
am calling
me,
myself
but it
out.
is me. I am calling
But let's
myself
talk,
out.
can we talk about that too? Because I think that is actually the normal, right? If we look at
Yeah.
families,
Yeah.
the podcast can be heard around the globe, but I think most of the listeners are US centric because I'm US centric. Most American families now, I don't know, I haven't looked at the statistics recently, Rachel, but a large percentage of them are blended families.
Yeah, not surprised. Divorce is becoming more common, and actually, I think it's really tied to we just had the 50th anniversary of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, which allowed women to finally open their own bank accounts and loans in their own name without a male partner. So if you look back at the past 50 years, that was literally October 28th. So Monday was the 50th anniversary. It's only been 50 years, but I bet you would see like a correlation between divorce rates and women being able to control their own
This
money.
brings up so many feels because I saw this the other day, and I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know even about this act until this week.
Yeah,
It's a huge
it's a big
deal. And this
deal.
is something I want listeners to really know is that if you're struggling with your money, it's not just on you. It's
Oh,
society
for
has created
sure.
real barriers at real points in history, and we are unburdening the
Mhm,
psychological legacy of policy decisions past made and currently being made.
mhm,
And so the problems are not just
mhm.
in you. They're not just, you didn't come out of the womb
Oh,
with money
yeah,
problems. You were
totally.
born into a complex society with complex
Yep,
rules, contradictory, and sometimes outright oppressive rules about how you get to navigate. And so if you're struggling to manage your money,
that's right.
it's okay to reach out for support. It's okay to reach out and get emotional help. It's okay to get practical help.
Yeah,
So I side railed where you were going in your
that's a good
conversation
one.
because it's so important to me because I think it's easy as a white male to take for granted the many privileges that I've
Mhm,
had and to look at my own family history and my own
mhm.
parents. I mean, part of why I'm in this work is I looked at my parents' relationships with money and their conflict points and couldn't understand it from a kid's vantage point. But now from an adult, it's, oh shit, there was a lot more nuance going on there for mom and dad and what they saw with their
Yeah.
parents, and that this is true for all of us. So,
And you and I don't even have the layer of
yeah,
being a person of color, being an immigrant, not speaking English as a first language, not really having any
yeah,
visible
yeah,
disabilities,
yeah,
maybe some invisible ones, but there's so many privileges and benefits that we both have. I tend, of course, to be a little bit more aware of the
yeah,
history for women's privileges,
right.
just as a woman. And having worked for a lot of female centric businesses over the past 2 years, I was most recently at Ellevest, which is like a women's robo advisor. So, yeah, there's so much there that we could unpack. But yeah, for sure, I want to echo what you say that there is a lot of times when either when I am
Yeah.
dealing with my own money issues, which I'm
Uh-huh.
dealing with in therapy with my new
Yep.
favorite financial therapist besides you, Sarah Carr. I
Shout
love
out to
her
Sarah
so
Karsh,
much.
past guest of the podcast. Yes.
So good. And I'm dealing with a ton of my own money issues around this, but a lot of clients come to me with a lot of this shame. And I do tend to
Yeah.
get a lot of female clients, maybe more people of color than I had experienced in some traditional wealth management firms where I was working. And there's a lot of this shame that comes from systemic issues. And those are not always things that we can immediately solve, but we can become aware of them and we can talk about how they're impacting your own relationship with money, why you might make certain decisions. A lot of people who have been traditionally oppressed
Yeah.
by our financial systems are much more thoughtful about taking
Mm,
care of their community. This is like almost a built in feature. And again, it could be people of color, it could be immigrants, it could be folks who have disabilities. Lots of different communities share this that they take
mm,
care of themselves. And it's actually so great to see, but it means that we end up talking about slightly different financial goals. One of the clients that I work with right now is really
uh-huh.
focused. She's a woman of color. She makes a great income, and we want to divert some of her income to creating community, like investing in
Uh,
community for her as a anti-capitalist, anti-systemic
Yeah.
issue type of thing. So her retirement planning, we did speak about like a traditional retirement plan, but we also spoke about what if you set aside some money to buy property and build some
Uh-huh.
tiny homes on it and invite people from your community to come in and live. You can invite a diverse crew of folks who all have different skills, and you
Yeah.
can work together to fulfill some of these needs in retirement that you're going to have. You need food, you need
Yeah.
shelter, you need entertainment, you need something to wear. And like you can develop alternative things to take care of yourself in retirement by investing in your community. So, those are some of the additional conversations that I think we might have when, especially when folks are not coming from a place of privilege. You really are more aware of these things and you start to explore alternative options, which I think is so cool. It's one of my favorite things I've done over the past
I'm
20
biting
years
my
in this.
finger literally because I'm like, oh my God. Yes,
You want to say
I
so
am. I
much
don't know
about
why I'm biting my finger. It's
it.
not a normal habit of mine, but I'm like jumping out of my skin excited. And I'm trying to actually be a patient listener.
Okay, talk. Go.
I just want
Go.
to say badassery. I just,
It's super
right.
interesting to do this, by the way. Love thinking about these
To
alternative
me, that
scenarios.
is the word that I would place on it is authentic financial planning.
Oh, did you read my list of values that I keep right next to my desk?
I
And one
did
of them
come
is
straight through your Zoom
authenticity.
camera, looked down onto your desk, and saw that.
Authenticity.
And
Yeah,
so
no,
can you build
100%.
on that in like your journey with money and why authenticity at this point is so important? Because I think there's some other layers that we haven't yet touched into about what really drives this for you.
Yeah. I mean, I got into financial planning because, well, honestly, it started because I
Uh-huh.
took a business class my senior year of high school. I
Yeah.
was looking for an easy
Uh,
class because I had all AP
yeah.
classes and
Yeah.
languages and all this stuff. I was
Sure.
like, I need one easy class.
Yeah.
So business was it for me. And fun story, there
Yeah.
was, it became my thing for the rest of my life. There was an investment challenge and
Yeah.
I blew it out of the water. I think because I realized how interesting money was. I didn't have the self awareness to know that one of the reasons why I found it so interesting is because
Uh,
we had no money growing up. My grandparents did, but by the time it got to my parents' generation, there was multiple
mhm.
factors I think that influenced this. One of them being that my dad converted to like charismatic
Uh-huh.
evangelical
Okay.
Christianity in the 70s
Uh-huh.
during the Jesus movement, got super involved in like a local church, and that was our life. We were
Yeah.
like in that church all the time, multiple times a week. We gave almost all our money to that church. They made financial decisions around the church. So like my dad left a great job at a hospital to go be a
Yeah.
missionary. He took
Right.
me and my whole family, and
Okay.
we were missionaries in Haiti, humanitarian aid workers, I say now, because sometimes I like have feelings about being a
Yeah.
missionary at this time. But we were missionaries in
Okay.
Haiti for 2 years, and I got to live. Actually, we had this enormous
Mhm.
privilege of being white and having funds. Our church supported us. So we lived in what used to be a plantation house,
Yeah.
and it was super fancy. And this is when I was like 4 to 6. So this is right when my money
Right.
beliefs are starting to
Yeah.
form. And we were like, had this level of privilege that I'd
Okay.
never had before. My dad
Yeah.
didn't make a ton at the hospital, but we didn't own a house. We weren't like buying new clothes or anything like
Yeah.
that. We had a really old car. So this was a new level for me. And then we left when I was 6, moved home, and my dad just bounced from job to job. I think part of it for him is this like he has some money shame and some money stuff that he needs to work through because
Right.
his parents were wealthy. He went to a private prep school. He had
Right.
college all paid for, and then moving into this religious environment, there's a lot
Yeah.
of messages we were getting regularly about money, right? It's easier for a rich man to go through the eye of a needle than it is for him to
Yeah.
get into
Oh
heaven,
my
right? That's the
gosh.
big
Yes.
one. Don't build up your treasures here on earth where they can rust and get destroyed.
Yep.
Build them up in heaven. I could probably still pull out the exact verbiage, but
Yeah, yeah,
sometimes
yeah, the
that's a little
paraphrase is good
traumatic
enough.
for me to
For the
reconcile
listeners that have been
verses.
on this journey, they get it, they know what you're going after.
So there was all of these messages we were getting. I came out of this like weird position between ages 4 and 6 of living in, a place that was really poor, right? We lived out on the lower peninsula of Haiti in a town called Lacaille, very poor. People begging for food almost every day. My mom would take all of our leftover dinner and put it into these cups and
Okay.
freeze it and hand it out for food. And so I think I realized that we lived in a
Yeah.
place of privilege then. And then coming home between like 6 to 9 years old, we didn't really have that anymore, but we had a lot of supportive family. We were in a place where we had tons of family around us. And then when I was 9, we moved because God told my
Uh-huh.
dad to move 500 miles away to a place we had never lived, didn't have any family or any support. He got a minimum wage job. And there were times that we were on
Yeah.
the edge of eviction from the
Uh-huh.
housing that we lived in, definitely on food stamps, definitely on housing assistance. I didn't fully realize all of this
Yeah.
stuff, but it was happening around me
Yeah.
and I could
Yeah.
sense it. And so then I think all of those things really pushed me to want to
Yeah.
understand money better. Why? How does it work? We didn't have it. What if I do have it? There's some of that jealousy, I
Yeah.
think, that comes into it. There's shame about I couldn't go to soccer camp like all my friends did. I couldn't go on certain field trips because my parents couldn't afford it unless I worked to pay for it. I got a job when I was 12 delivering newspapers so that I could do the
Yeah.
things my friends were doing. So there was a little bit of like keeping up with
Mhm.
my social peers. I ended up in a high school in the town that we moved to in Vermont it's half boarding and half day school, but it's a private school. And almost all my friends
Mhm.
were the boarding students who are very wealthy. It's an expensive school to go
Yeah.
to if you're boarding. We're talking
Uh-huh.
millionaire and billionaire parents, most of them. Some of them were on full scholarship. I ended up being friends really closely with most of the
Sure.
ones that were on full scholarship just because we had a little more in common. But I felt that sense of
Uh-huh.
like jealousy, and friends would go to Boston to shop on Newbury Street and buy clothes that they never even tried on. They just brought home. And if they didn't fit, they'd be like, "Oh, Rachel, do you want these? They're new. They didn't fit." And they were like, you see the price tag still on them
Oh,
for
wow.
$150 for this pair of pants. And I'm like, oh my God. So I had a little bit of this motivation going into it. I wanted to prove that I was as
Mhm.
good as all of these
Mhm.
peers that I was surrounded with. So I went to school at Bentley University, which actually was a perfect fit for me. It was like almost the same
Yeah.
environment as what I went in high school. And so I felt really comfortable.
Uh-huh.
I knew how to navigate it, but I was super motivated to prove something to all these kids around me that like
Yeah.
I could keep up. And by the way, I didn't know that at the time. I've only realized this over the
Okay.
past like 5 to 10 years that this was
Yeah.
my motivation for it. And then started working at these great jobs, got a job on State Street in Boston. I was working in like personal financial planning. I fell in love with not the investment side of it. I started working actually at Ameriprise as
Yeah.
my internship and was doing all the cold calling and the fish bowls that they have you do. But I loved the
Yeah.
planning work they had me doing. They had me filling out all the information to put
Right.
into the financial plan. I loved seeing what people were doing. It
Mhm.
felt like a puzzle. I have it one of my favorite things in the world to do, and this sounds silly, but I love untangling
Okay. Yeah.
necklaces. I love it. So I don't even care. I keep all of my jewelry
Yeah.
when I travel in this bag, and all the necklaces get tangled. I don't even care because then I can sit there at night
Yeah.
and unwind by just untangling these things. And I see financial planning as a very similar
I love
exercise
it.
for
I
my
love it.
brain.
Yeah.
I'm like untangling all these threads, and I'm literally presenting a financial plan this afternoon to somebody. I love getting to take all of these inputs that are all tangled and teasing them apart and understanding, okay, if this, then that, or because of this, you can have these choices. I've always been a numbers person. I love math. Math is a language to me, and I
Yeah.
also loved
Right.
studying languages. Like I said, I speak French fluently. I speak some Japanese. I speak some bunch of other ones. So to me, it was a language, and the numbers inside this plan, as I'm teasing them apart, they were like
Yeah.
speaking to me. I can hear what they're saying and like the story that they're
Yes.
telling me. So that's really what pulled me in. And I got hooked at 19 years old doing my first internship. And then I have ADHD, so this is impressive that I have stayed in a career for 20 plus years, but there's
Yeah,
always something different. Every situation is
right.
a little bit unique. Even if I see the same exact set of factors, the people on the other ends are different, and what is going to work for them in real life is
Uh,
different. So it's kept me so focused and like almost making
right,
focus for me, I
right.
guess you could say.
Yeah,
So there's so much more that goes into it, but a lot of it was like shame fueled, but also curiosity, a little bit of
yeah.
jealousy coming into it, a lot of proving myself. And I've only just over the past 5 years started to unpack this with lots of different types of therapy. So
Mm,
not just talk therapy,
yeah,
which I rely on, but also I tried something called RTT, rapid
yeah.
transformation therapy, which is a combination of
Okay.
hypnotherapy and CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And it was honestly one of the most impactful 2 hours that I have ever spent doing something because we were able to tease out some of the big issues with
Yeah.
cognitive behavioral therapy and then address them while I was in this like hyper
Ah,
relaxed state of hypnotherapy. I was able to isolate moments that kind of led to some of these beliefs and then reframe them. And then all you do is you listen to the hypnosis for 30 minutes, or really it's 15 minutes most of the time per night for 30 days. And I have found, I told my husband literally last night, I have realized my brain has changed in the past 2 years
mhm.
since I started doing this and how I think about what is it that I want to spend my money on. It used to be travel. That was my way to prove to all of these people that I had
Oh,
made it was travel. Plus
yeah,
I loved it. I spoke other languages. I wanted to see other cultures. But the really big thing that motivated me to spend money, even if I couldn't really afford it, was wanting to prove myself. Look at me. I'm going all over the world. I think I probably traveled more than a lot of those friends who were
right,
really wealthy in
right.
high school. So I just said a lot, but basically, like, it all comes back to this understanding yourself. If you can start to identify where that's coming from, you can make meaningful decisions to change how you're reacting to it. And I feel like the other big one for me was can identify that feeling of being not good enough or feeling like I need to prove myself to somebody. I could feel
Uh-huh.
it in my
Yeah,
body, like sense it and live with it, allow myself to process it, which I had
uh-huh.
never done before. And then usually when you stop fighting that feeling that you've never sat and processed, it goes away on its own. Fun
Oh,
story.
yes.
I know. What do you wanna do with all of that? There you go, I just laid it
Well,
on you.
I receive it and I'll process it and let it flow back to you and flow back to the listeners because I think, Rachel, I'm not sure what it feels like for you to be on the other side of sharing what you've just shared.
I
Uh-huh.
think about chakras.
Yeah,
Sometimes I trained in Reiki. This is actually one of
yeah,
my ways of processing, like,
uh,
what I came out of with this religious experience, and I feel like my throat, my
uh-huh.
center of self-expression getting really hot. So I wore a button up today because I usually get really flushed when I'm
Yeah,
telling the truth and very passionate and authentic about it. I feel it getting so hot. But I also feel this feeling in the pit of my stomach, which I recognize this. It's funny. I've done these exercises, somatic exercises you can do where you find out where your yes sits and where your no sits. You can say yes over and feel it. You actually feel a feeling in your body where it sits and no, and you can feel this feels like a yes. It's like right in between my
uh-huh.
heart and solar plexus and it's right there. And then there's maybe a little bit of fear, which I feel like in my
Sure.
solar plexus just below above my belly button, just below my sternum. And so it's a little combination of all of those feelings as I share this. But I also know this is why authenticity has become such a big part for me. There are so many others who feel this way. I have met them. I've met tens of
Yeah,
thousands of clients at this point. Learn vested thousands of clients, L vested thousands of clients. So I've had this crazy experience as a CFP of seeing thousands and thousands of
right.
clients versus just a couple, or even just a couple hundred. And authenticity, when I share that I'm doing this because I've made all the mistakes in the world and I've learned, so I want to
Right.
help you find your path that works for you. People love it.
Yeah.
They connect with it. You see this in content creation on any platform. The people who are vulnerable and authentic are the
Right.
ones you connect with the most. So I think authenticity for me really drives like what I'm working on. It allows me this connection
Mm,
back to my spirituality, which I've developed a whole different relationship
yeah.
with over the past 10 years, coming out of the one specific genre
Mhm.
of spirituality. And so authenticity almost becomes that for me. It's like a form of spirituality. It allows me to discover who I am because I'm always changing. I'm always a new person. And so I can authentically say, oh, yeah, I did used to believe that. And now I've changed my mind. And actually, that's okay to do.
Yeah.
So authenticity is a big one. Personal growth, if you couldn't tell, is another really big one for me. And it just comes from this idea that we can evolve, we can grow and change. That is not what I grew up with. I grew up with a pretty
Yeah.
fixed mindset. This is how people are, and they stay this way. And it's just opening up all of these new doors for me to understand myself better, others better, work with clients
Yeah.
better on their own money, and help them grow and evolve as well. So,
That is the message here at Healthy Love and Money, is that we can grow and change. I often say we can learn, heal, and grow. And it's a continual evolving
mhm.
process, and where the emphasis is on. Rachel, I think
Yep.
there's so much to what you've shared that's so valuable. And I trust that each listener will hear and pick up what they needed today. But I would invite listeners to go back now, hearing the arc of this story and knowing this is only the tip of the iceberg of what Rachel shared, but there's some real important pieces. And so just go back in 10 minutes or so and listen again through it and see if you can settle yourself and really be asking yourself, what do I need to hear as Rachel talks through this? Because I know I froze and stopped
Yeah.
listening a little bit when you talked about your dad giving up a career path to follow Jesus, to follow God, and because that's
Yep.
a hot button for me. But there might be
Yep.
something else in Rachel's story that you need to hear that you didn't hear because you stopped and you heard something else that was like, oh, yeah, flag. And so this is important because this is also the work that Monarch Money is not able to do for you. So it's
Yes.
complementary. It's not one or the other. But if you're struggling to engage in Monarch Money or any budgeting software or any financial planning, what you probably don't need to do is spend more time in that software. What you need to do is to work on
Yeah.
what's happening inside of me. What's my story? How can I engage different healing modalities? Rachel, you named quite a number of different ones:
Mhm.
CBT, RTT, somatic experiencing. Those were the ones I picked up right off the top.
Hypnotherapy, I want to plug that because I always thought that
Yeah,
was like BS, but
I still
it
hold that
works.
belief. I'm working on challenging it. You're probably helping pushing me a little further. And that's okay. Look, because I think the reality is there's going to be some people listening today that still think therapy is BS. And if that's where you're at, I
Yeah.
meet you there, because I thought therapy was BS even after I finished my
Mhm.
graduate degree in therapy. So it's okay no matter where you're at on that journey, because one of the things I told my client the other
Yeah.
day is, you've probably had this experience. We've worked with people that have been before under the leadership of people trying to air quote help them, and it's actually made their life harder or
Mhm.
worse. And so it's okay if
Yeah.
there's a part of you that's skeptical or concerned about what are they offering, what's it
Mhm.
going to do to me, how's it going to change me. I don't want people to change me. And so healthy helping comes from a place of authenticity and freedom, where you can
Yeah.
pick it up and use it or put it down if it's not working for you. Toxic helping
Yes.
says this is the way you have to do it. If you don't do it this way, it's XYZ bad consequence. That's threat, control, and
Yeah.
manipulation.
And actually, this is one of the areas that I am exploring even more at
Yeah, great.
Monarch, to be frank, is we are thinking about, yes, we want to provide simple, guided financial planning advice. As I think about this guidance that we're hoping to give to folks, I actually view it as almost like this GPS where I can recommend a route for you, but maybe in the back of your head, I really
Yeah,
want to see this thing. And so, actually, I'm going to take a turn
yeah,
here that wasn't expected. We should just be able to reroute you to help you get to your final goal or to help prompt you to change your goal. So there are options. You can pick up what is working for you and put down what is not. And I want to actually put that into a personal financial platform so that you still get the guidance toward the decision-making help. There's so many decisions to make in personal finance, even beyond the emotional and behavioral parts of it. There's literally like hundreds of different things to
Right.
know, thousands maybe. That's why we study for years to become certified financial planners, or I have a master's in financial planning. It's because there's so many choices just
Uh-huh.
about the logistics and just about the account types and investment choices. So if I can make that easier for someone in a platform, then they can still work with somebody, a human, to talk about this, all the behavioral and emotional aspects, and make different choices than maybe I would recommend as a best practice. You don't
Right.
have to stick to that. I have made a ton of choices in my life, personal financial life, that were not
Yeah.
best practices, right? I left a well paying full time corporate job with benefits while my husband was still in school to change careers, right? And that was not a best practice. I did not have in the amount of runway or like cash savings that I would have
Right.
recommended somebody would have had at that point. So I made a decision that was not a best practice and worked really well for what my family needed and what I needed. And honestly, for my career, right? It was so different from what I had been doing for these 15 years. So I made a choice, and there was a lot of emotional and behavioral stuff behind it that I probably could have used a financial therapist to talk through. Now I am
Yeah.
talking to somebody about it. And we are talking about, yeah, maybe I don't feel as prepared now for retirement in a traditional sense. Maybe I don't feel like my
Right.
account balances are high enough. But I've been investing in my own retirement by building a structure around my lifestyle that will help me keep going for many years past what a
Yeah.
traditional retirement age would be, and build multiple streams of income that I can cut off one here if I don't feel good, but I can continue this one if I really do. So this is where I think financial therapy overlaps so nicely, but I also want to give folks this like recalibrates and recalibrates and recalibrates with every single decision that you make that might not be on the traditional path that we would have
Yeah, and
told
I
you to
think as we
take.
wrap up the conversation for today, at least, it is what I hope listeners are hearing is that we can recalibrate our financial life and our financial expectations anytime,
Anytime.
and that's okay. And sometimes for money focused individuals, we can get so hung up on making the financially optimal decision that we miss that there's other places of very business language optimization. Quality of life
Mhm.
may be a very
Yeah.
valuable trade and worth whatever the financial trade-offs are that come with it, known and unknown. And so
Mhm.
just know that like when you're working with a really great financial planner like Rachel, you can work through here's the financial trade-offs, but what are the other what are your quality of life trade-offs? What are your mental health trade-offs? What are your physical health trade-offs?
Mhm.
What are your because there are other trade-offs, and that's where really deep financial planning comes into play is it's not just evaluating on what's the
Yes.
most financially efficient way to do this, but what enhances the
Yes.
quality of your life. So, Rachel, if
Absolutely.
people want to connect with you and
Yep.
all the work that you're doing, I mean, where should they go?
Multiple places. Okay. So Monarch Money for Monarch. You can reach me there. Our team is Monarch is on Reddit, and I'm one of the Monarch employees on Reddit as well. So if you want to check that out, that's always a great place to hear more. We have socials, of course, Instagram and TikTok and all that. For Reverie Wealth, I have my own website, reveriewealth.com. I'm also on Instagram personally. Rachel FP is my primary one for business related stuff. And
Yeah.
yeah, LinkedIn, of course. Connect with
Well,
me on
listeners,
LinkedIn.
all those links will be in the show notes. Go ahead and check them out. I encourage you to go and sign up for Monarch Money if you have not already. Rachel, thank you for your time today.
Yeah. Oh, it was such a pleasure, Ed.
Yep.
Can't wait to do it again in the future.
I invite you now to stop for 5 or 10 minutes and reflect on what you just heard. Maybe even journal about it. Give yourself the time to consider what you just heard and what it means to you. By giving yourself the time to reflect and integrate what you just heard, it will help you along your journey of learning, healing, and growing towards financial intimacy in your life. Please like and follow this podcast and share with someone that would benefit from being on the journey of financial intimacy. Wishing you healthy love and money, Ed.